We're going to call to order the Building Code Board of Appeals meeting for September 4th, 2024. Our first one is roll call. Kathy, could you roll call, please?
Mr. Avethera.
Here.
Mrs. Brooks.
Here.
Mr. DeZerman.
Here.
Mr. Friesen. Mr. Bruner.
Present.
Quorum chair. A quorum is present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Number one will be, next one will be approval of the minutes of the November 1st, 2023 meeting.
I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second them.
Okay,
Kathy, could you take a vote, please?
I sure will. Ms. Brooks?
I forget what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. DeZerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bruner?
Yes.
And Mr. Avethera.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next will be our first hearing. It's going to be a variance request in 724 Trinway. Tom, could you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Application was received by the applicant at the owner at 724 Trinway. This to install a 48-inch fence along the front portion of the property. So the property is a single front lot per the City of Troy zoning ordinance. It is in the R1C use district. As such, it has a 30-foot required front setback. The petitioner is requesting a variance for a new aluminum fence of 48 inches or 4 feet high for a length that totals 128 feet of 70 non-obscuring aluminum fence. The 128 feet includes a double gate that totals 12 feet, all to be installed 1 foot from the property line along the front of Trinway Road, where the city code limits that area to be 30 inches or 2.5 feet in height. The application was denied because of the request to install 48 inches as opposed to the required 30 inches.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Does anybody have any questions for Tom on this case before I bring up the applicant?
I will later.
Okay. Is the applicant in? You come up here? Yes. Write your name, please, and then state your name and tell us why you need this variance.
My name is Gordy Muscali. You want my home address?
No, just write it down.
Okay.
Just sign it.
I'm from Kimberly Fence, and I'm the applicant on behalf of James, who lives at 724 Trinway. We're requesting to put in the 4-foot tall, non-obscuring the black aluminum fence along the front property line along Trinway.
All right. Is there any questions for the applicant?
Are we just going to talk to him or the actual applicant?
We're the applicant. I mean, we're the contractor.
Is the homeowner here too?
Yeah, he's here. Yeah, he's here. Yep.
Okay.
We're both here. And some neighbors.
All right. You want to come up, the homeowner too? Because you'll answer more questions than the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear, I mean, me and Gordy, I'm James Nardeski, I'm the homeowner at 724 Trinway. Gordy Muskelly, he is my contractor. We both filled out the application together, so that's why he had come forth to more speak to the details. So, but I can speak to him as well.
James, would you please sign in also? Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Maybe while he's filling, you could tell us why you need the variance? Why do you need a 4-foot fence in the front yard instead of a 30?
So today, me and my wife and my children have owned this house for a few years, or 2 years now, and this fence has been there long, like over 40, 50 plus years, I'd say at this point. It actually exists today at 48 inches. My neighbor, who you can see in this picture, has the exact fence that we are going to be installing on our property line, which is also at 48 inches. So the reason why is because we want a new fence to replace the one that is, you know, degraded beyond repair. So that's where we're at today.
All right, do we have any more questions for that?
Can I add one more thing? The next door neighbor at 700 Trinway contracted with us last summer. We requested, applied for, and were issued a permit for the 48-inch tall fence next door, issued, and the fence was installed last year.
Tom, do you have any?
Yes, that fence permit was issued by a former City of Troy employee that no longer works here, but he actually issued that, we believe, in error because, you know, it does not meet the zoning requirements. And so that when it came before me to do this particular review, you know, I'm following the zoning for the fences, so that's why I had to deny it.
Okay.
So was there a fence there existing at 700 previously in front?
Yes, there was.
4-foot tall chain link fence.
So that was removed and this aluminum obscure
Correct.
fence was put in. Was the chain link fence that divides the 2 yards, was that there existing as well prior to the fence install on the neighbor's property?
Yeah,
Correct.
all we did was the front.
All you did was the front, okay? And do either of you know what the height is of the existing fence that's in your yard presently that you're requesting to be replaced?
It should be 4 feet as well.
No, with the height of that one currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Over time, as you can imagine, 4 feet tall, I mean, grass, it could be 44 inches, 45 inches off the ground.
Okay.
But it's a 4-foot, when we tear it out, it'll be a 4-foot tall chain
Right,
link
well, a
fence.
new fence would be a 40.
Yes.
Right, I understand
Yeah.
that. I was just asking the existing one, what the height of that was existing. And Tom, for your sake, there is no obvious permit or anything that was produced for the existing fence that's at the property, correct?
No, none that
I would have figured based on the age or whatever. And you purchased the property and the fence was already there, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I believe I'm going to direct it at Tom. Do we know if the 30-foot setback could be maintained?
If the house is I mean, I'm going to take a guesstimate, the house is probably going to be at the 30-foot setback. That fence line is going to be within the right-of-way, the front yard setback, so that's what requires it to be 30 inches.
Thank you.
Tom, I have a question for you. Is since that fence next door is put in by error of the city, it could never be taken back down, saying we made an error, take it down, right?
That would be at the discretion of the building official.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't think so with an issued permit.
I don't think so either. Okay. Anybody else have any more questions for the applicant?
Just one other question for the homeowners. So to replace the existing fence, is there any specific need that you need the fence to be there for yourself or your family?
Yeah.
That's above and beyond what's there existing? Is there some, obviously from a, looking at it, right? Decorative standpoint, but is there any other reasons that you're requesting this for that replacement?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big reasons is I have a young family, like I've stated. I have a daughter who's 3, a son that's 1. They tend to run up and down the driveway, and if you guys know anything about Trinway Drive in Troy, it's very, there's people that drive very fast up and down the street, very much so above and beyond the 25 miles per hour that's regulated. So it's more or less for the security and protection of my family, to make sure that my kids aren't running to the street when I'm outside in my yard, like doing landscaping or whatever that needs to be done. So that's the main reason. And, having obviously that 12-foot gate is going to help that, so.
Okay.
Bob, you have anything for the petitioner? Okay.
And maybe one thing I did want to add, I did bring in today, copies for all of you board members, a write-up that we did and the neighbors that we did talk to in the surrounding area that are in approval of what we are doing, so that we do have the neighbors' approval of who we've talked to in support of what we're doing here. So I don't know if you want me to hand that out to you now, or,
You can pass it out.
okay,
And 2 of them are here.
and 2 of them are here, correct?
You'll open it up for public comment?
Yes. Anybody else any more questions for the applicants?
One more question for Tom. Did you mention something about right-of-way? Is the current fence on the neighbor's yard into the right-of-way of
It's,
city
it's,
right-of-way?
it's just outside of the right-of-way, but it's up at the property line.
It's at the property line, not into the right-of-way? So what they're asking for here is the same?
It would be identical as a neighbor.
Okay, just want to double-check based on what you were saying before.
It would more or less, if Gordy would be able to properly answer, but it more or less connect to with the new one that's already there.
It will.
Is there another chain link fence on the opposite property line? Because I'm kind of hard to see any pictures here. Is that what you're trying to do, is just do the front with the gate?
On the opposite property line of his property or the
Yeah,
property?
of his
already
property,
did?
yes.
Yeah.
The applicant's property.
If you
Actually,
look
just
at,
past it.
Yeah,
Go back
it's
up.
hard to see on that picture,
So
so.
in this one, it's another, I can't remember how much footage there is right there, but that also will be the aluminum fence. That would be installed just like it is on the other side. That would be adjoining to 700 Trinway.
So this area here.
People to the east.
Correct.
Do not have
Yep.
a fence in their front yard.
Yep, going, that's the east side of the property.
No.
I was trying to see that. I'm not, didn't provide a,
But yeah, just that tie-in on the east
The
side.
tie-in is not going to be,
So you can kind of see the post in the picture. Sorry, it's hard to see, but, yeah, on that side.
if you look at
Oh, I see a little bit of the fence right
isn't that the driveway?
your packet,
Yeah,
this shows where we're putting the fence and there's existing chain link.
that's what I was asking, is the chain link here?
Yeah, this is all staying, we're just
Right.
doing
The front, right,
Yeah,
yeah,
the neighbor 700 is right here.
right. That's what I was figuring, but I just wanted to double check. There was no replacement on the side. Yeah, we have that. yeah.
Okay.
all right, anybody else for the applicant? You guys may sit down then.
Okay.
Oh, there it
I'm
is.
now going to open up to the public comment. Does anybody from the public like to come up and speak? Come up, sign in, and state your name.
It's not even chain link, it's
Yeah, it's an old like front fence. It's not barbed. I drove by it, took pictures. It's not barbed wire or anything. Not keeping the cattle. For your curiosity.
Okay, very good. My name is Rex Brown, and I'm at 717 Trinway, directly across the street from James and Jacqueline. And several comments I want to make. For one, in the immediate area of these properties, we have 5 houses with 4-foot-high fences in the front yard. At 670 Trinway, 700 Trinway, 701 Trinway, 717 Trinway, and 724 Trinway. So the request of having a 4-foot-high fence amongst 5 that are already there is a minor point, but it should be brought up. As James mentioned, and I can tell you in more detail because we've lived on the street longer, the city of Troy did some traffic studies a number of years ago, and they didn't put up the big digital readout flashing lights thing to see how fast the cars were going. They put some rubber hoses across the road, which were very unnoticeable, and they clocked multiple cars doing over 60 miles an hour. And that's in the Troy records. They're the ones who did the study. Over 60 miles an hour down our street. And part of the reason I think is because our street is mainly flat, but there's a slight rise right in front of James and my house. And the cars were trying to get going so they could go flying. They wanted to fly over this rise is the only thing I can imagine. But in any case, I had toddlers at the time. And my kids like to play in the front yard. We have a big yard, but the front yard is where they like to be. And my wife would talk to the neighbors, things like that. But you'd only have to turn your back for an instant when somebody's doing that fast and the kids, you ignore them for an instant and they could be out in the street and at 60 miles an hour, you have no hope of anything. So we had a 2.5-foot fence and split rail, but my 3-year-old toddler could easily get over that or through that or whatever. So that's why we put up the 4-foot cyclone fence, and we're glad that we did for that reason. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, James's fence we've been there for over 40 years, and the fence was there long before that. It's probably 60 or 70 years old, rusted, dilapidated, and he wants to put up a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing fence that matches his neighbors, matches his side fence and everything else. So I just can't imagine why that wouldn't be able to be approved on a variance there. Certainly the other neighbors I've talked to, nobody's had any complaint about it. And like I say, 670, 700, 701, 717, and 724 Trinway all have 4-foot high front fences, and that's all in the immediate area. So, any questions or?
You're in favor of the fence then?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Is there not anybody else like come up and speak?
Just in favor.
You have to come up and just.
Do we have to read this in? Do we have to read it in? I just know that there was.
I just think this is really silly because, like Rex says, we all have them. We have one. Ours is old, dilapidated. I can see the writing on the wall. When we come to do ours, we're going to have to come here for the same thing. Ridiculous. We have dogs. Our dog was hit right outside our fence because of what? A speeding car. James has 2 little kids, maybe more to come. It's for the safety. You know, these were there. We have an old school neighborhood. We don't have one of these cool fancy little neighborhoods. It's old school. It just should be allowed. It's there looking horrible and he's trying to better the neighborhood. So I'm in favor, 100%. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, would you just say your name for the record?
Oh, my name is Liz Waddy.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak about that? We're going to close the public meeting and bring it back to the board.
Is there any thing to be heard?
Oh, is there any letters, Kathy, that came?
Comments?
Comments?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, all right.
Just the one that was turned in by the applicant.
Yeah, just
For the
one
property
turned
owner?
in.
Yeah. Tom, was there anything brought back from, I'm sure this went in front of the DPW for review? Or will
Yeah,
it?
DPW has no, they have no objection to the fence at all
Okay.
being there.
Okay.
The only thing hindering him from James or Gordy, the applicant, receiving this fence permit is the height restrictions of the current fence zoning.
Okay. For the applicant from Kimberly, just for my own record, what's the depth of the post that you usually put these in at for these front?
The depth,
Yes,
4 feet, have to go 4 feet building code.
4 foot for the depth?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everything's driven now pneumatically. We don't upset very little earth except for the gate posts.
Okay.
The gate posts are sunk in concrete 4 feet.
Okay.
Okay. So, just talking to the board here is, you know, we only allow 30-inch fences, and that's a city code. We're here only to enforce the code. 30-inch, you know, I would say we allow 1/48-inch fence, we're gonna have 100 of them. But with that being said, they have an existing fence there. I feel they have a grandfathered fence in, that if they don't do anything, the fence stays. It's old, it's rusty, it's nasty looking.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think my question was the fence that was there,
Yeah.
would they be applying for a permit if it was a, say, a chain link, changing the style of it, but it
I
was
think
still
they
4
still
foot?
have to apply for a
But
permit.
you
Tom, is that correct?
I thought if you left the post.
If they're replacing an existing fence with a fence of the same like, a permit wouldn't be required then at that point?
We still would require a permit, correct?
You'd still require a permit?
Yes.
Even,
A replacement fence, yes. Let's say taking an older one down, putting a new one up, yes. Despite, it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, the style doesn't really affect.
even if you leave the existing post
Correct.
and just reface.
Well, with that being said, I still think, like you made a point, that the existing fence is there, they're just replacing what was there, so.
No, I feel someone 3-4 doors down came to ask for a new fence in front of the front yard, I would not see that. But since there is an existing fence here, and they are matching, there's one across the street, there's one next door to them. I personally don't have a problem with it,
Yeah.
unless you guys can convince me otherwise.
I think that if it is also, if it was the whole entire property, I'd be a little bit worried about that as going past, but,
Okay.
and I agree that the 30 inch is a little, it needs to be addressed by the city, but more or less, I would agree that it's,
I mean, the part that we're looking for is it contrary to public interest? I think there's supporting documentation from the neighborhood that the interest is in favor of the change. Does it adversely affect the property or the immediate vicinity? And it seems like this community over the years has had this type of fence at this 4-foot, not 30-foot on the setback. The hardship, that is such an open-ended, whose hardship just, and definition of that. But just the fact that this is a degraded fence, there's safety concerns just with it being a degraded fence, more than height or location. To me, that would be a hardship.
All right. Could the applicant come back up for a second? I forgot to ask you one question. At this board, you're required to get a majority vote. Normally, we have 5 people here, you need 3. With 4 of us, you need 3. I should have mentioned it earlier. Your option is to come back when there's a full board or go with what we have. Tom, if it's a 2-2 vote, is that a win or a loss or a push?
If it's a 2-2 vote, it would be a loss.
Be a loss. Okay. I just wanted to give it to you for your attention.
So we have 4 board members here today?
4 votes and you need 3.
What's a full board?
5.
So we're just missing one?
Yes. So, I mean, if you want to go on, which I think you're okay.
I feel like we've presented our case. We have
Okay.
a strong case based on the evidence we provided. I would like to proceed forward with the
Okay.
vote.
I just wanted to make sure that I brought it up here because
Yep.
normally I bring it up at the beginning of the meeting, but we haven't had one in 9-10 months. We forget things. So.
No, fair
Okay,
enough.
thank you.
Yep.
Bob, anything?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Does, just to answer your question, ma'am, it's not we don't write the codes for the city. We only enforce the codes. When you said it's silly that you can't put a 4-foot fence, that would be, I don't know, Bob brought up with the city council maybe, or somewhere else. They write the codes in the city. We only can enforce what they write in the rules for us.
But at the same time, that fence is existing, our fence is existing. I would assume we're going to have the same problem.
I'm just telling you what,
Right.
well, you know,
But
don't
just
get,
understand that viewpoint as well. They were existing.
if you'd like to come up here and discuss it, we
Is there a
can.
grandfather clause or something for
We
replacing?
we can't talk in the audience, we have to,
We can't hear you anyway, so if you want to hear us.
well, no, just come up to the microphone and we'll be happy to talk. But we can't have a talking out into the stands, that's all. So if you'd like to come up, I will reopen it up so you can come up and, I just want to give you our reason of what we do up as a board. We only enforce the rules.
I guess I have a question, maybe you can answer.
Okay, come on up.
As far as how did somebody come up with 30 inches as a miraculous standard versus 48 or 6 feet or whatever? I mean, is that supposed to be aesthetically pleasing? Is that supposed to fit in with Bloomfield Hills instead of Troy? I don't know where the 30 inches would have come from as a standard.
Well, there's a lot of characteristics that play into fences, right? I mean, if you think about it, somebody pulling out of a driveway and backing up, right? And if you're sitting in a car and you're backing up and that fence is 4 foot tall and it's obscuring, right?
Well,
it would create a difficult pathway for you to see when you're backing up into a street, which you have children on the street or pets and things like that can create that. Or like you said earlier, that there are people doing 60 miles an hour and you don't see them because you have an obscuring fence blocking you. And that's a lot of the reasons we put the code as there is for safety, right? I mean,
Right,
that's the biggest point for the city.
That's why
is
we
for
want a fence
safety.
for our safety of our kids and so forth.
But this board
But these, of course, are non-obstructing fences, so they're not, like, you can't see through them. It's,
I understand.
So
And
that
we
really-
all understand that. It's just that's why this board's here, because we
No,
look
I
at the
understand.
variances to say, okay,
Yeah,
this
there's
makes sense to us
some-
and why the code, why we should vary from the code to accept those things.
Okay.
But understandably, I mean, we didn't, like the chair said, we didn't develop the code. I mean,
No, I
I can't
understand
even
that.
tell
I
you how
understand.
old code chapter
It could
83
be
is,
50,
but
60 years, we don't
Yeah.
know.
yeah, so I mean, yes, it takes people like yourself to bring that forward, and you'd have to bring it up to the city council to say that you would like to have a revision of that or a review
Yeah.
of that code, and that's that can happen, and that would help us
Yeah.
too, so I
No,
mean.
I understand.
I mean, or other neighbors that may come forward, like the other neighbor stated, that going
Yeah.
forward, that there could be circumstances like that that could help that,
Okay.
so. But we don't make those codes, though, I mean, us that are here on this board.
I understand.
So-
I just wondered where 30 inches, what the magic number, where it came from, that's all.
We don't know. All right, thank you.
It's grandfathered in.
Any more questions for anybody on the board here? Anybody want to put a motion forward?
What are you gonna do? Oh, you're gonna make me do it, all right. So I will move to approve the variance for 724 Trinway as the applicant applied for Chapter 83, and granting it in variance would not be any contrary to the public interest or general purpose to intent of Chapter 83, and the variance does not adversely affect properties in the immediate vicinity of the proposed fence, and there's no, they provided the difficulty that this unusual characteristics of this property that precludes the reasonable use of the property, so.
Support.
Was it you supported, Gary?
No.
No, Mr. Bruner, thank you.
Kathy, will you take the vote on that then?
I will. Mr. Jezerman,
Yes.
Mr. Bruner,
Yes.
Mr. Apathera,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks.
Yes?
Motion carries.
The motion passes.
The Chapter 87 was revised on July 8th, 1996. That's the section where the 30 inches is. I don't know where any of you were in 1996, but I was in college. And,
There you go.
it's a big city, 34 square miles, and, you
A
know,
lot of change.
sometimes what makes sense in one area doesn't make sense in another. But to Mr. Apathera's point, we don't make the rules, we just enforce them here. So thank you for your
Well, we
time
look
and
at the
patience.
unique
I do have one question, probably for Tom. Do we need to reapply for a permit now?
No, the application that you've provided for us is still on file, and once we make this motion formal, I guess, in our system, we'll go ahead and we'll issue that permit to you. Hopefully within the next day or so. So,
Okay.
Thank you. All right, next line of business is communications. Tom, do we have any communications today you know of?
not that I know of.
Okay. Next one would be public comment. Anybody from the public wants to come up and speak? No? Miscellaneous business. Kathy, do you have any miscellaneous business that you know
I
of?
have none. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, seeing that it was November or so since our last meeting, what are we doing about setting a schedule for next year?
Ms. Brooks, I have no bearing on that question.
Okay.
I don't work for the city. I'm just contractual, so I do not know.
Okay.
I would say that the planning department, Mr. Savadant or Jackie Ferenz might be able to help you, or the
Yeah.
building department.
Why don't we have Tom tell Celine to send out next year's schedule? We can all
Next month.
email in and see what we have.
I mean, as long as the board, as long as it's not a required that we all motion on it or have,
Well, let's see
I think
what
they can
happens.
issue it, and then we
Yeah.
can,
Let's first put an issue together and see what it is and see what we have to do
Yeah.
to put the vote together. All right? Last one is I'd like to introduce Bob Bruner, the new city manager right now. So he's on our board. I don't know if you know everybody.
is that from the health department?
Yep, Teresa's from the health department.
Matt, does
Matt
that,
German.
your name sounds familiar to me, so I don't know. Is there another Bruner in the Troy area or somewhere?
I've been around. I mean,
Been
I've been
around.
here 5 years. I was city manager in Birmingham for 4 years, Ferndale for 3 years.
I knew a Bruner in Troy, though, because I grew up in Troy. so-
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Well, it's
Family
what
ties.
my great-grandmother would have referred to as one of them other Bruners.
yes. Well, it's good to have you on the board here, so,
Good to be here.
All right, we're adjourned.
yeah. Thanks, Tom.
Tom,
Thank you.
What a great, I'm gonna tell Celine that you should do every meeting.